Folks, howdy. Sean Brock here with you once again for the old songs and stories. And I did create that playlist. If you've missed some of it and you want to catch back up, or you need something to put you to sleep at night, I'll put the link in the description box. This mandolin, I want to talk about it real quick before we get into today's tale of woe, conundrum, and nonsense. This is made by my good buddy Butch Click. I started playing Butch's mandolins. This is the third one I got from Butch. I started playing his mandolins in 2014, March of 14. He actually signed his my first one, which is somewhat like this one. This is the Engelmann top mandolin, and I had to have two Engelmann tops. They're my favorite tone wood on a mandolin. And my first one, he signed on my anniversary, January 26th, mine and my wife's anniversary. And what was also his late father's birthday. And it's 2014, and it snowed so much that year that I actually didn't get the mandolin for almost about 2 months after he signed it and had it finished up for me. But this is one of his. This is my third one from him, and this one you might notice I have electrified. I have my K&K twin internal there, and I picked up using a tone guard some years ago. I used to always jack my mandolin out to the side, and I discovered how much easier it is on your back when you play like this. But this is just a wonderful, wonderful instrument. Done a lot of work with this, even though I don't much play mandolin as much really as I used to. But Butch Click, my old buddy, Frankfort, Indiana, love him to death, and he's been a true pal of mine. And you might notice some of what I've been doing is we kind of worked our way up. Last time I was talking about my Taylor 510 that I got when I was 15. And I've been sort of doing 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And just to kind of abbreviate some of what we talked about before, I'd started lessons at about 9.5 years old. Those had ended when I was about 10.5. And I started making money playing. And one of the guys there around Harlan County, he's still there, and I hope and pray that I can do a video with him. A fellow named Orby Hunley. Orby was a school teacher at Ross Point Elementary, and Orby is a banjo player, and he was kind of the main happening dude, I thought, in Harlan County. He had a good band called the Harlan County Ramblers, and some of the fellas in that had stopped playing music, and some had passed away. And Orby was nearing retirement when he and I started playing together. He kind of had put his years in the school system. He had worked up in Detroit in the auto plants. Him and his brother John Hunley had worked up there, and Orby ended up coming home back to the mountains, and he and his wife Jean, and he got enough years in the school system to retire. And Orby is one of the main trainers. If I think of Orby as the kind of the Evander Holyfield of my bluegrass venture. Man, he can play, or could play at that time, faster and louder than anybody that I'd ever come across, and he still he ranks right up there. He ranks right up there on that. And that trained me up kind of as a guitar player to where, you know, you had to be able to keep up the speed. I mean, man, Orby knew what he wanted out of rhythm. He loved good rhythm. And me and Joshua Young were over at Wayne Henderson's festival in a jam, and we come back to the motel that night, and he said, "Man, you're a really good rhythm player." And to me, that's just the best compliment that I can be given, because I enjoy playing rhythm. I enjoy accompaniment. And I've heard Dan Tominski say this. And then Adam Steffi, who was always kind of my biggest mandolin hero, said the same. There's just a lot of pleasure, and you can really control the music through your accompaniment more so than your solos. And Orby trained me up on the speed, the volume, the dynamics, and not just in the rhythm, but in the flat picking too, man. You had to be wide open all the time to hang with him. And Orby and I, he started a band called Pine Mountain Grass, and I played guitar for a number of years. And then later on, when I was about 14, and I was making money and things, I called my old buddy Frank Farley up, and I said, "You know, I'm playing a lot and making money, but I want more. I want more. I want to make more." And he said, "You know what I would do if I was in your situation?" He said, "If you play the mandolin or the fiddle, you can play with anybody you want, because there's nobody, there's a shortage. And, you know, you'll run up on somebody that ain't nearly as good of a guitar player as you, but they sing and they front their own band, and you can take a spot, you know, playing mandolin and make more money." And I said, "Well, that's a pretty good idea." And so right around Christmas time, when I was 14, my dad brought me from we lived in a community called Bledsoe, which in Harlan County, it's kind of over in the corner of the county on the Leslie County line and on the Bell County line. And we came down to Middlesboro, where I currently reside, oddly enough. But we came to Middlesboro, and down here on Cumberland Avenue, just a few blocks away from me now, is a place called the East End Pawn Shop. And a gentleman owns that by the name of Larry Cadle, and Larry was another guy that I had a lot of dealing with back then, because Larry's a good musician, had a band called North Ridge that still plays around the area. And Larry would keep instruments, and I went in and bought a Kentucky mandolin, a little A model. I think it was, I want to say it was 200 series, 100 series, I don't know. Back then it was $140. It wasn't worth much. And I brought it home, and I called Frank up and I said, "Man, I got this thing. Where does anybody get started? Tell me some chords." And Frank told me a couple of chords there on the phone. And that was the extent of my mandolin lessons. It was that one phone call. I've never taken a lesson. And it's kind of odd. Especially when I was really, really active in the mandolin scene. I used to teach, a lot of workshops and things, but I actually never took a mandolin lesson. I just transcribed, and by that point I'd played so much guitar, I could learn anybody's style and kind of their breaks, and I just took off on it. Well, and a few things happened that year that I was 14. What would that have been? 95, I guess? Yeah, 95 and going into 96, because my birthday's in July. So kind of that 95, 96 school year, there were several things that happened. I picked up the mandolin, and I excelled fairly quickly on it. I just sat back and worked on it just like I had the guitar, and started playing gigs on the mandolin. and the guitar. And of course, something that I'd left out before is I was also playing a lot of electric guitar, playing a lot of rock. I was a big hair band fan. You know, I liked Poison. I liked Bon Jovi. Loved Richie Sambora. Still do. You know, I was real into stuff like that, man. And back then, you know, cats could actually play. And nowadays, I don't know. Rock and roll is pretty much kind of, you know, an underground scene again. But you know, I was into all that as well, and was even playing clubs. So on up the turn of the year, going into '96, December of '95, another thing happened to me was I got asked to play electric guitar at a local church over the line from Bledsoe over in Leslie County. And I had some cousins who attended there. And things got a little confusing for me because what happened was their guitar player had an illness, or his wife had an illness, I can't remember. But he was unable to play for a Christmas program that they were doing. And they asked me if I would step in, and I was going every week, twice a week, to rehearsals there for a couple weeks. And it came to our last rehearsal before we were supposed to do the program. A lot of times they would combine Wednesday night church service with the rehearsal, you know, so I was playing for the service and things too. And there was a little old lady who I'd heard her testify, and she could quote chapter and verse real well. And she walked up to me and she said, "Son, I hope you know that Jesus Christ is ashamed of you." And I said, "Ma'am, I didn't know what in the world to think, you know." And she said, "Well, you come in here and button up shirt and everything, but you got your hair down over your collar," because my hair, I go psycho. I either have, like, what little bit's left of it, I have long hair. Most of it's gray, and well, most of it's fell out, and the rest of it's gray. But I would go through stages where either I had a buzz cut or I had long hair. And I was in a long hair stage at that time, and I didn't know what to make of that. And she said, "What do you think about that?" You know, and she just sort of pushed the issue. And I said, "Well, ma'am, I don't know." And she said, "Well, you know that I know the Bible, and I'm telling you that Jesus is ashamed of you." And in psychology, they call it stages of development, you know, our cognitive stages of development. And you're very influential. You're subject to be, you know, highly influenced at those ages. You're kind of solidifying how you feel and what you think. And finally I said, "Well, ma'am, I don't know. I know you know the Bible, but I always thought Jesus wore a robe. I mean, robes don't have collars, and he's always depicted as having long hair." And she said, "Well, I'm just telling you, you know." And I took great offense to that, you know, because as far as I was concerned, I thought, you know, that she was sort of a representative of God, if you will. You know, as we all are, because we're created in the image and likeness of God. But you know, we're all fallible, of course, too, and it was the fallible part that I didn't understand. So I went home and I thought about it, and I thought about just bailing out on the service on them, or on the play, but I decided that wasn't the thing to do, that I'd made a commitment and I would stick to it. And I decided that I would sit around and think about this deal with churches and religion and all that, and see what I concluded. Well, the year went past, December went by, and here I was in the 8th grade. I went to Green Hills Elementary, like I'd mentioned, I think, and maybe the first one we did. And we were a small school, usually ranged between 250 and 300 students, and that was pre-K through 8th grade. And we usually had 25 to 30 students a class. So, I had friends and all these people that I had been with. Some of them were there on the first day of kindergarten, and here we were graduating, and we were going to move on to the county high school, which was Kaywood High School. And that school usually had 1,000, 1,050 students or so. So big changes were coming our way, and we were in this small community. Everybody knew everybody, but here we were going to be stepping out, and the high school was, I don't know, probably 9 miles, I guess, from home and up across Pine Mountain on 421, just a huge, huge mountain in the Appalachian chain. And one day up in late March, early April, one Saturday, me and a couple of buddies of mine, Jerry Cooper and Travis Joseph, one of our favorite things to do was to go over to the Harlan Village Cinema 4 and watch a movie, and either eat at the Subway or the Wendy's or Racks or something. And we went out and took our little girlfriends out to the movies, and we went over and went to like a 5 p.m. movie and come out, and it was unseasonably warm. I remember it was up, well, maybe it was about average, but it was in the 70s. Good shirt sleeve weather, and we come out, and it was just kind of on that edge of dark. And it had rained a ton that spring, and it had rained a bunch that day. And we came out in the parking lot, and one of the things I described in my first video, I think it was about my eye condition, retinitis pigmentosa. And they say that's, a doctor told me once, he says, the cruelest eye disease you can have because you watch yourself go blind. You watch your central vision become hazy, and you watch kind of the tunnel close in and just get smaller and smaller. And sometimes it's really, really gradual and you don't know it, and sometimes you have big changes. And we came out of that movie, and we were in the parking lot, and we decided we were going to go to the Wendy's next door to eat. And kind of the way things were set up, we could go out, come out of the movie theater and turn left, straight left, and go take a shortcut. And there was the parking lot of the movie theater was kind of up on a big wall, and we used to love to, they had a nice, about an 18-inch abutment up there to keep people from running their car off of it, but we would generally go over to the edge of the parking lot and step up on the curb there and either sit down and jump off, or you could walk toward to the end of the parking lot and it would slope down and your jump wasn't as far, but up by the wall of the theater, it's between about 5.5 feet off that wall. And we were talking and giggling and laughing going on, and turned, and we got over there, and I wasn't looking down, and I come up on that curb and just went over the edge of it and went off that wall. And there was a good, probably about a 20-foot grassy strip between that wall and the Wendy's parking lot. And I landed face first in that, and it was nothing but mud, mud and grass, because all the runoff from the big rain was there. And I was just soaked, man. I looked, I was I was brown from head to toe with mud, and I was so angry. Man, I was angry, because here we were out with our girls, and I was always a conscientious dresser back then, and very particular about what I would wear. How my hair was done. I'd put gel in my hair, or hairspray or something, and wear Dracar cologne. Pay $50 for a bottle of cologne back then, and some of them habits I still hang on to, but I still hang on to my Dracar, but I'm more of a slouch in my dress now. But I was upset, and went in the bathroom there at Wendy's and tried to paper towel myself off and stuff. But I knew that something had happened, and I was going to have to make some decisions about going on to Kaywood High School, because there's this thing called orientation mobility that people with visual impairments or blindness, they evaluate you. They're instructors for O&M, we call it. And at that time in the state, thank God it ain't that way now, but back then there was 3 instructors for the entire state licensed, and 2 of them worked at the School for the Blind in Louisville. So you couldn't get services if you were in Eastern Kentucky back then. You couldn't get orientation mobility services. And I knew that I needed some help, and I needed to learn new ways of doing things, that the old ways was starting to run out on me the night I fell off that wall. And I began to think about it, and I went home, and the first call I made, I wasn't a stranger to the Kentucky School for the Blind. Actually, when I was in 2nd grade, me and my sister, they talked us into coming to a summer camp up there for 2 weeks. And I got up there and had, it was a bipolar experience. I either had the most fun in the world or I was the most miserable person in the world. And I got so homesick that ended up coming home after about 4 days. It beat me. It absolutely beat me. Mom and Dad had to come get us. But it really turned me on to a lot of stuff, because I remember that was the first time I actually went out and heard a live band. They had a jazz festival going, and they took us all to it, man. And I mean, there were some great acts there. I remember Spyro Gyra was there, and those are some guys that I had relationships with way down many years later when I had a smooth jazz career. But they had a lot of really good acts over there, and they had indoor swimming pool, and just a lot of interesting things. There were sidewalks all around the neighborhood, and you could walk places and go places. Very much unlike where I grew up in Harlan County. But I was homesick and went home, and then after that they said, well, we want you to come, maybe even if it's just a week at a time. Just come once in a while and let us evaluate you. Let us, be familiar with your opportunities. And so 3rd grade, I went for a week during the school year. And it was Halloween week, I remember. I had a little Bart Simpson costume. And we went trick-or-treating, and man, I had a garbage bag full of candy. Everybody envied me when I got back to Harlan. But I toughed it out. I lasted a week. Well, 4th grade, I went a week again. 5th grade, I went a week again. But that 3rd grade year, that Halloween was a huge turning point for me, because I met a fella named Michael Cleveland. I stayed in the dorm, same dorm as Michael. And here he was, 9 years old, played like a half-size fiddle, and I knew enough about music to know that guy was as good as anybody. And I was amazed, because he was a kid. And Michael and I, when I came home from that, I told Mom and Dad, I said, don't give me no more of this lip about being too little, because Michael's smaller than I am. And man, I mean, this guy's unreal. He's unreal. And I want to learn to do this. I want to take lessons. And so Michael helped break me into lessons. He never, I don't know if I ever told him about it. But down through the years, I stayed familiar with the Kentucky School for the Blind, and Michael and I had a good friendship. And like 6th grade, I would go for 2 weeks. 7th grade, I went for, I think, 3 weeks. Short course in the middle of the year. And so there in the 8th grade, after I fell off that wall, and Michael and I, like I say, we were real tight buddies. We would even have jams over the phone. We would talk several times a week. And I thought, my sighted friends, they don't understand kind of what I'm up against. I don't know who I can talk to about what's happening, this change that's happening to me. And I called Michael and I said, man, listen, I think I'm in trouble. My sight's fading. And I've got to be able to learn to use a cane. And I don't want to move up to Louisville. And he said, oh, come on, man, come on. I'll move in the dorm with you. By that time, Michael had been out of the dorm. His dad, John, and his stepmom, Elaine, they had bought a nice house in St. Matthews, and Michael was just busing to school there in Louisville every day to the School for the Blind. But he said, if you'll do it, I'll move into the dorm. We'll be in the dorm together. And we'll jam every night. We'll have a good time. And, I thought about it, and finally I talked to my parents about it. And then I started talking to my friends in school. And everybody would say, oh, well, we're going to miss you and all this. And I decided it was a very hard decision to make, but I decided that I would go ahead and go. And, I had my old buddy, Orby Hunley, over there, playing music all the time with him, and I talked to him about it, and he said, well, Sean, he said, man, I'd give anything if you didn't have to go, but I think you're right. I think you need to do this. You need to see it through. And so there in the summer of '96, August of '96, I took a suitcase and a guitar and my mandolin, and we went to Louisville and enrolled for the school year, my freshman year of high school. And that was a very difficult experience. I should have looked up how many hours it takes, or what the mileage was from my house in Bledsoe to the school in Louisville. But to give you an idea, I'd get to come home every week. And they would let us out a half day on Friday. They'd let us out at noon, and the bus would roll out, and I would get back to Harlan usually right before 6 o'clock in the evening. And I would get off the bus at Dairy Queen there in Harlan, and Mom and Dad would come over and pick me up. They'd be there waiting. And 10 o'clock Sunday morning was when the bus would be there at the Dairy Queen to pick me up, and we would go back to Louisville. We'd get there way up in the day, 2:30, 3 o'clock. And so that was my weekend, kind of 6 o'clock on Friday evening to 10 o'clock night, or it took 30 minutes to get from the house to Dairy Queen, so kind of 9:30 Sunday morning, And it was something to be away from home. And if there have been very few events in my life that was as painful as that decision was for me. And I mean, man, I've always carried a little bit of weight on me, and I was, good 6 foot tall. And I remember I got to where I wouldn't eat. And, I would go to the cafeteria and sit there. I wouldn't eat. And I finally got down to 141 pounds, which was small for me. You could cut me in half. I don't know if I'd be down to 141 now. But and I would deprive myself of sleep. I was so homesick and missed home so bad that I would sit in my room at night. We had a dorm parent named Robert Mitchell, who's still a really good friend of mine, and he's a very big real estate agent in the state. And matter of fact, Robert has worked on any real estate that I've ever done in the state of Kentucky. But Robert was the house parent, dorm parent there for the second shift, 3 to 11. And he would come around 11 o'clock at night and make sure, do his head count. And then the night house parent, Gail, she came on. And I would lay down in the bed, until Robert did his head count. And I would get up and drag my chair to the window and sit there. And a lot of times I'd sit there all night. I would sit there until Gail came around at 6 o'clock in the morning to wake us up. And she'd open the door and she'd say, "What are you doing in that chair?" I said, "Well, I woke up a little early and was just sitting here." And but it was tough. And it took months for me to get over that. But big things started happening for me. And I was just kind of in a constant state of confusion because, to be honest with you, part of it goes back to the lady at that little church that I spoke about. And I would sit there in pain, man, and I kind of developed, for the lack of a better term, I guess, a grudge against God. Because I thought, you sit up there, you're almighty. I mean, man, what did I do to deserve this? And people would try to explain to me, no, this is not what God wanted for you and things. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter to me. Well, if it's not what he wanted for me, he can go ahead and change it. Well, it don't really work that way, they'd tell me. And so it was a rough time for me, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Things did slowly improve, though. Me and Michael, there was a ton of players around Louisville. Jeff Guernsey was living across the river in New Albany, Indiana, and Jeff would come bail us out here and there, and we would go out picking, and Jeff is just a wonderful musician. He was working with Vince Gill at the time. Worked for Vince for several more years thereafter. Brian Allen, another great picker around the area. We would do a lot of playing with Brian, and Bill Wolf, Merle Thixton, a lot of guys. And I also I got my O&M skills together, and I learned to use a cane, learned to ride a bus, and all these things. And I got all my off-campus passes so I could stay out to 11 o'clock at night if I wanted to, as long as I checked in before I left, and would approximate when I was coming back and say where I was going. So I had plenty of freedom. And I started eating again and started fattening it back up, and started running around with girls, and life kind of, I accepted my reality. because I knew I didn't have any other way. I had to do this, you know. And I used to go up Frankfort Avenue to a store that's still operating up there as far as I know, a place called Mom's Music, and they were a really good store back then. And out to Guitar Emporium on Bardstown Road, I used to go in there. Steve Cooley, another great picker. Steve worked in there and always had good stuff to play and things. And out at Mom's, though, on Frankfort, I did a little bit of work, a little bit of studio work upstairs there. And I would go in and just hang out, you know, after school. And I met a guy who, he and I developed a good friendship, a guy named Travis Meeks. And Travis was primarily a rock guy. He was an alt-rock singer and writer and player. And Travis and I hit it off, and one of the things he loved about me was that thanks to bluegrass music and Orby Hundley, I could play acoustic very aggressively. And Travis had a dream of doing an acoustic alt-rock band. And he thought I was perfect for that because I could, you know, I played a lot of blues licks and things. You know, I played a lot of rock, and I could transpose and what I knew on electric and play it on acoustic. And Travis and I worked together a lot. Matter of fact, I started staying in Louisville. Instead of going home on the weekends, I would stay a lot and stay with Michael at Cleveland at his house, and we would do things. And some weekends I would stay with Travis, and we would do gigs there around Louisville, mostly bar gigs. And there was even a time that we worked a gig downtown Louisville that we'd worked a few times in a place down there. And they had a door behind the stage, and we'd just pull up in the alley and get our stuff out and go through this back door and set it up on the stage. And we were in there playing a set one night, and they had these, they had their own sound system and things, and we just had to bring, you know, our gear. And we were playing a set in there, and the mic stands that they had and used, they didn't have like the three leg boom type stands. They had the rounded bass and, you know, heavy metal bass and straight stands. And a guy reached up and grabbed a hold of one of them and hit another guy in the head. He busted open like a melon, man. And we were told by the owner, hey, fights break out, keep playing, don't give attention to the fight. And we knew, though, when that happened, it was right in front of the stage. We knew that, you know, there was more to this than just a good old squaring off with fists. And the owner come running up, and because every one of us up there were underage, and he said, you guys get your stuff and get out of here right now, right now. Travis drew back on him. He said, listen, we'll get out of here whenever you tell us to. Get my pay right now, and then I'll think about leaving. So we got paid, but unfortunately, that fella died. He died. You know, so I got exposed to some elements there. Here I was growing up in bloody Harlan, and walk into Louisville, and you come into some deal like this. You know, it's kind of crazy. But Travis and I got along real well, but you know, it's no secret. You know, I'm not downing Travis in no way, but he had some desires to experiment with substances, and I didn't want to go down that road. and I had a certain level of discomfort, and you know, we remained friends, and Travis went on that same year. I remember Days of the New, boom, they got signed, and they started out opening for Metallica. You know, I mean, he had just a bang-up career, and he was, you know, still right around Louisville, coming Mom's Music, and he was same old Travis. But, you know, it's something that he has fought since I first knew him, clear back in the mid-'90s. And like I say, it's nothing that Travis don't tell you. It's nothing that you don't see. You know, they even had him on one of these intervention shows. I remember Travis being on that probably 10 years ago or so. But things happened for me, and I broke the bond. I was so homesick, I broke the bond. And a fellow named Cloyd Oakes was the superintendent of the school, the students over there, or assistant superintendent. Dr. Bartley was the main superintendent, but Mr. Oakes, he loved bluegrass, and he looked out for me and Michael. A lot of times me and Mike got into a little bit of trouble here and there for doing things like dipping. You know, we were both big dippers, and you know, just we went on a prank calling spree one time. We didn't know that people's voicemail boxes said what extension the call came from, and that kind of got us busted out. But you know, Mr. Oakes, he would kind of go a little bit light, you know, on us, because he felt bad. And he felt bad for me. He said, "Oh, you mountain boys always take homesickness the worst, you know." And he said, "Once you get used to this, though, you'll never want to go back to the mountains." And I definitely got used to it. I got used to it. I got used to the conveniences. And I learned so much. I learned so much about technology, because I came from a place where I didn't know anybody in Harlan County at that time that had home internet. And, you know, when I went to Louisville, you know, 1996, 97, people all over town had internet, you know. And so I was able to expand my computer skills. We had a wonderful music program. I took orchestra after school and during school. Dorothy Nolan was a wonderful orchestra teacher. She was actually one of Michael credits Dorothy Nolan and Jeff Guernsey for teaching him to play the fiddle. And so it was a wonderful program, and we had a little recording studio there with 8-track, quarter-inch reel-to-reel tape that we could use. So I was able to kind of work on my skills, you know, for playing sessions and things, and practice, and you know, just a lot of good things happened for me down there. And Mr. Oakes was wrong. I decided by the end of the year that I had come and I'd done what I'd set out to do, and that I was going to go back home. I was going to go home, and I was going to go to Kaywood High School. But Mr. Oakes was also right, because I decided that I would go home and I would go to Kaywood High School. And then once I got out, I decided that I would leave and I'd never be back. So, you know, we'll talk a little bit about that next time, but that's pretty much what I did. I went home and went my remaining years of high school and left in 1999. And but the never come back part was wrong too, because in 2023 I moved back here to the area, to Middlesboro, Kentucky. But anyway, I do hope some of y'all are still getting something out of this. People walk up to me and things, and man, I'm gratified. You know, I enjoy doing these, and there's just so much more that, you know, we've got to cover, and you know, I hope some of you get something out of it, and we'll stick around for some more of it, you know, and you can catch back up on it now that I've got off my lazy behind and did that playlist. But I guess I have to tell you one more on Michael, because Michael, he had moved into the dorm too, and you know, me and him we just every night play music, and every Thursday night we ordered Papa John's pepperoni pizza with extra sauce, and to celebrate that tomorrow was Friday, and Michael, over there in the dorm, he'd moved in because of me, and you know, his house wasn't 5 miles away, I guess, and Michael got caught dipping so many times. I bet you there must have been probably 25 cans of tobacco confiscated from Michael that year. I was a little slicker about it, man. I would swallow it. I would do anything. But, you know, Michael is, you talk about a guy, if you don't believe in a higher power, man, Michael is one of the people that restored me during that time of uncertainty, because here was a guy who was born premature, born without one eye, blind in the other eye, born deaf in one ear, and my goodness, you know, Michael Cleveland has won Grammys. He has won, I don't know how many times. He's won Fiddle Player of the Year at IBMA and SPIGMA, and you know, been a rounder recording artist for so long. Started out with Dell and Bradley, and then on to Rhonda Vincent, and then started his band Michael Cleveland and Flamekeeper. But that year was good for Michael too, because being in the dorm, you know, he had to be independent too. And Michael is such a nice person, and has always been such a humble person. He'll play music with anybody. I mean, if he counted on people to be on his level, there wouldn't be anybody for him to play with, because the guy is just unreal. And he was unreal back then. Back then, he was one of the best. I sat around like and heard people that I considered big heroes like Bobby Hicks. And man, I would walk away and think, man, Michael's a better fiddle player to me than Bobby Hicks. I mean, and I wasn't being partial about it, you know, that Michael was just so always been great, you know, and does his stuff with Bela Fleck now. But Michael got in his first fight that year. There was a fella that moved into the dorm who loved to wrestle, and he loved to tackle Michael. And Michael would be sitting in his room with the door open and sitting with his room was at the end of the hall, and he would have his door open, and this guy would look down the hall. He had enough sight, he could look down the hall, and he'd look straight down the hall, and he'd see Michael sitting there, and he would run as fast as he could down this long hall and dive across the room and dive on Michael. And Mike did the please don't do that, and man, I told you not to do that, and I'm getting sick of you doing that so many times. And he said, man, I'm tired of this. You know, I don't want to fight with nobody, but I'm tired of this. You know, what if I'm sitting here playing my fiddle or something, you know, because even back then he played John Silikowski fiddles, and they weren't cheap. And one day this kid, his name was Josh, he come running down the hall, And he did that to Michael, and I was right there. And Michael said, "I'm sick of this." I mean, he used plenty of choice words, because that was the other thing me and Michael got in a lot of trouble for, was our language. It was very flowery, to say the least. But Michael went over in the corner and got his cane. He got his cane, and he walked up to Josh and he said, "Have I told you to not do this?" And Josh said, "Well, yeah, but I'm..." And he drew it back like a Louisville Slugger, ka-whap. And I mean, this thing, man, it sounded like a circus whip, you know, just whoop. And every blow, he gave him a line of wisdom. He said, "From now on, when I tell you that I mean to stay the you-know-what off of me," I mean, and he did this for several minutes. And the guy, it was a huge, huge guy in high school. Michael did it till he cried. The guy just openly cried. And Robert came and got me, and he says, "Well, Sean, I understand Mike's been in a fight. You were there. Why didn't you stop it?" And I said, "Just one simple reason. The guy had it coming. He got told no over and over and over. And apparently he don't understand the word no, but I bet he understands the word no now." Well, unfortunately for Michael, they threatened some punishment, and he said, "Man, you know, we were about at the end of the year. We were on up in April." And he said, "You've already decided you're going to go home and leave at the end of the year." And he said, "I think I'll just go ahead and move out of the dorm." He said, "If it's okay with you, because I promised you that if you came to school and moved into the dorm, I'd move in too." And that's how square of a guy he is. And I said, "Yeah, man, go on. You know, I'd move out too. I would move out too if they would let me." But you know, Michael learned, because he was always, and still is, such a mild, loving human being. And it was kind of something to see him pushed to the spot of having to do something like that. And I would bet you to this day that he's not been pushed around like that. And you know, part of the reason why is because he stood up for himself, you know. And so that's about all I've got, guys. Thank you again, and sorry for rambling quite so long, but I hope somebody got something out of it, and please subscribe. Y'all leave me some comments and let me know what's going on, and take care.